Breathwork itself is powerful. It's a powerful modality. It's a path to clear away debris, to realize that your life is an emanation of God. The breathwork peels away the layers, clears up the perceptual windows so that you actually have an encounter, a personal revelation that, wow, God is right here.
And today I'm joined again by Dr. Michael Beckwith. This is Reverend Michael Beckwith, who is the founder of Agape, one of the most influential spiritual centers on the planet. He's a member of Oprah's SuperSoul 100 group and is a trailblazing figure, a luminary in the spiritual realm. Part of the topics that I want to discuss today is to how to meet God, how to connect with God, how to have a communion, divination with God.
Spiritual practice is intention. Why are you doing your spiritual practice? You're not doing it just to become better than somebody. You're not doing it just to gain the stuff of the world. You have spiritual practice to wake up to your glorious nature, to discover who and what you are. Humanity grows two ways, through pain and through insight. When there's enough pain, we begin to grow. At some point, we begin to catch vision, possibilities. And as we walk in that direction consciously, the pain lessens because we don't need to be pushed anymore. Spiritual practice is not for you to just gain stuff from the world. It's not just like a prosperity teaching that says you can go get all the stuff you want and manifest it. The real teaching is about
Greetings and welcome. I'm your host, Espen. Today I'm joined again by Dr. Michael Beckwith. This is Reverend Michael Beckwith, who is the founder of Agape, one of the most influential spiritual centers on the planet as far as I'm concerned. He's a member of Oprah's SuperSoul 100 group and is a trailblazing figure, a luminary in the spiritual realm. He's obviously a reverend, which is why I'm so honored to be able to have this conversation again. And part of the topics that I want to discuss today is to how to meet God, how to connect with God, how to have a communion, a divination with God. And when I say God, you may feel inspired, you may feel excited, you may also feel a bit triggered, perhaps by sometimes previous experience with organized religion. So I want to see if we can kind of break down those barriers today, because even if we were to call it the quantum field, which is a scientifically proven field, we would still talk about the same thing, or come closer to the same thing. And so I think this is a very, very important conversation, because where would we be without a connection to source? So I'm honored to have Michael on the call today. He's published numerous books. He's traveled around the world teaching his amazing different types of wisdom that he shares with us. And what I really love about Reverend Michael is that he's not your dogmatic, standard, traditional reverend, such as this is the only way we teach spirituality or paths to God. We have a reverend in front of us wearing the hat that says Om, by the way, just to point it out. So welcome to the show again, Michael. How are you today, buddy?
Good, doctor. I'm doing very well, man. I'm happy to be with you again. I looked on my schedule and said, oh, I'm going to be okay. I got a podcast. And I knew who it was with, and I was happy. It was like, yeah, this is going to be good. I like this.
As do I. I was so excited in our last podcast when we talked about so many different topics. We even touched upon the chakras, and we talked about healing. We talked about what's happening for humanity and where we are moving forward. So I'd like to start that with the first question. There's a specific part to your teaching, which is that pain will push until vision will pull. I want to ask you, what is that? What's the vision for humanity and that's being pushed right now? And what happens if we ignore the call?
Very good. In my teaching, I teach that pain pushes until the vision pulls. And to break that down a little bit, the universe, the multidimensional universe is progressive. The cosmos is progressive. It's always expanding to reflect and reveal the source. Whether, as you just indicated, whether you call that source the presence of God, the love, I call it love, beauty, intelligence, it's life, but it's always expanding. Even when there's a contraction in the universe, there's always a next great expansion afterwards. So it's progressive, which means if we're not growing, if we're not unfolding, and let's say 365 days goes by in our life and we're still the same, we're not really the same. We've actually gone backwards because the universe has gone forward. So what does that mean? That if we're not growing, if we're not unfolding, then the universe pushes us. It pushes us with sense of contraction, symptoms, missed opportunities, things not seeming to work out for us. It's a push that's trying to get our attention so that we can participate in our own unfolding. So that's why I say that pain will push you until the vision pulls you. And when we talk about the vision, we're talking about on a couple of levels. On one level, we all chose to be here in this incarnation. And before we took the leap into this incarnation, we took a vow and made a promise to ourselves as to what gift we would give when we came to the planet, how we would offer ourselves to the planet, what we would vibrationally leave. So that's sometimes called destiny. I don't believe in predestination, but destiny is when you come into coherence with what you said you were going to do. And so the universe is constantly pushing us to expand into that. If we don't, then we get pushed. There's pain, you see. So that means there's something within us, uniquely and generally. What do I mean by that? You take a rose bush seed. Within that seed is an idea and an energetic intelligence to become a rose bush. It's already there. You don't. So the rose bush seed is yielding to what? A vision of itself. It's already there. So within us, since we are the universe in miniature, so to speak, we are the universe seeking to become conscious of itself as us. And so in a general context, there is something trying to emerge through us. That's our vision. And then there's a unique aspect. You're different from me, even though we may be in the same field. You're you, I'm me. So I have a unique vision of Michael, how Michael's going to do his thing. You have a unique vision of how you're going to do your thing, even though generally we're here to both unfold to our greater yet to be. So there's a vision within us. It doesn't come from society, it doesn't come from our parents, doesn't come from education, doesn't come from religions, doesn't come from the collective consciousness of humanity. We brought it with us directly from source. Humanity grows two ways, through pain and through insight. So when there's enough pain, we turn within and we begin to ask, what's going on? Why is my life like this? We begin to grow. And at some point, we begin to catch vision, possibilities. And as we walk in that direction consciously, the pain lessens because we don't need to be pushed anymore. We're now pulled by the strange attractor field of our vision. We're pulled by it. It becomes our North Star, You can say, why are you here? I'm here to help enlighten people on this planet. I'm here to help people come into a level of coherence around their destiny, around who they are. I'm pulled by that every day. I don't have to be pushed. I don't have to be motivated. I'm pulled. So humanity, is being pulled by a vision of a kind and just global society. Now, we have all of these different places in the world where there's unconsciousness, there's wars, rumors of wars, there's hate, there's separation, there is racism, bigotry. There's a lot of things going on in the world. Those are what is called the lesser of us. Oftentimes when you did mention I am a minister, but when we look at scripturally and it talks about the fact that we are to love the lesser of us, that doesn't mean people without money. That means people with limited consciousness. So if a person is into hate and separation, they're the lesser of us on the planet. They are our immature brothers and sisters, you see, that haven't yet caught the vision that we really are intrinsically all one. On the quantum level, on the spiritual level, there is no separation. And so they have a tendency to create a level of destruction on the planet, a level of separation. However, there is a vision of a sense of wholeness, a sense of oneness. I see it. It's very clear to me. That's trying to emerge on the planet. So look back 20, 30, 40, 50 years. A lot of what you and I are talking about right now is woo-woo. It was like those crazy people, they're sitting around with their eyes closed, they're chanting, they're doing weird stuff. Now it's all science. You know what I mean? Now you have quantum physics, you have epigenetics, you have evolutionary biology showing oneness, showing there are spiritual practices that if you participate in it, you will wake up. So when you look at the arc, you can see there's an evolution of consciousness that's happening on the planet. The revolution will not be televised, because the media is controlled. So you're not going to see a lot of these breakthroughs. You see these kind of conversations and breakthroughs on your podcast, on my podcast. But pretty much, if you turn on the news, your mind is going to be conditioned to the worst case scenarios of humanity, what to be afraid of, and you'll be seduced, hypnotized, provoked, and intimidated into a level of conditioning. So I know I'm taking a long time to answer your question, but we're pulled intrinsically, we're pulled by a vision of oneness, a vision of unfoldment, of our giftedness to be revealed, a level of communion with each other, and a coherence around the fundamental order of existence. That's what we're pulled towards. Now, as I said years ago, this is all woo-woo. Now it's science. It's and we have to have more and more people that are tuning into something like this than the 11 o'clock news that's going to keep people separated.
Amen. And I find it so beautiful that that we can have this conversation. And you take as long as you need with the answers, by the way. And for the last interview, we talked a little bit about Agape. Can you just share, where can people learn more about Agape? Because right now, when you're, call it teaching, speaking, or preaching, my whole nervous system feels safe and I feel at home. So I just want to add that in. Where do people go? Is there something that they can join online as well?
The people that attend Agape attended virtually because we're in 180 countries, So Agape International Spiritual Center this year in November, we'll be celebrating our 39th anniversary.
Oh.
So as an incarnation of a visible manifest community, we're in our 39th year. And so people generally watch us, like down under, they generally watch us the next day. But they watch us on Agape's YouTube channel. They watch us on my YouTube channel. They watch us on our Facebook page. And they watch us on our website, agapelive.com. And I do 3 services every Sunday. I do what is called the Way of Meditation service, which begins at 6:45 a.m. Pacific time. I do a Dharma talk, and then we practice meditation. The next 2 services, beginning at 8:30 a.m. and then again at 11 a.m., meditations. We always begin with meditation. I actually, there's music, there's singing, and I do a presentation, and and people come. It's a big fellowship, and then people that don't live in LA or LA adjacent, they just watch it online, or depending on what time zone they're in, they'll watch it the next day. So by the end of the week, we have, about 180 countries, people tuning in, watching, and calling themselves spiritual members of Agape. It's a very beautiful phenomena. Yeah, and we have a university. I teach classes. I have my ministers teach classes. It's a poppin' community.
It's amazing. And I want to touch on a couple of words that you mentioned. When I was young, I went to church. My mom, she believed in reincarnation. And the church was not okay with even having that conversation. So I think it's really refreshing to have this conversation, because my personal belief is that so much of the sacred texts of Yeshua and many of the sacred teachings have been manipulated. You mentioned media. We can't trust the media. We know that. We've seen that over the last 6-7 years, the insanity of the propaganda. And of course, not just only, but including. Does that mean, in your eyes, that media is owned by darkness, by forces trying to stop human evolution towards the expansion of consciousness? Or what are your thoughts on that? And if there is such a thing as a dark force trying to stop us from awakening, what do we do? What tools do we use to walk the narrow path, so to speak, to walk the right path?
Absolutely. You touched on 2 things right there. One, in a lot of the original text, reincarnation was all a part of the text of Yeshua ben Joseph and other great teachers, and it was church kind of took it out of it and said it was, from the occult or something to that particular nature. And reincarnation is one out of many possibilities. When you leave this expression, it's one out of many. I mean, we're eternal beings. We're never going to die. So we continue to explore and express and activate potential. Sometimes that's through reincarnating. Sometimes that's through traveling other dimensions of the cosmos. But yeah, so reincarnation is a, not only is a great possibility, and the media as we know it today is controlled by a very small group of people. They actually own the media. It's not commons. There are many things that are owned by people. Water supplies, the media, even people trying to own air, things of that particular nature. And so individuals that are unconscious have a tendency to desire to control individual. Now we can call that darkness. I call it ignorance, ultimately. And so there's ways. So people become indoctrinated to being more like sheep. Sheeple. They become indoctrinated into not realizing they know their own power. I mean, you look at the educational system in America was designed for people to be workers. It wasn't designed for people to activate potential, to discover their own gifted nature, to become creators. It was designed for people to become consumers, you see. And so what do we do to break out of that? First of all, if you're listening to us speak right now, something within you knows that you can break out of this limited paradigm, which is why you have spiritual practice. Spiritual practice is not for you to just gain stuff from the world. It's not just like a prosperity teaching that says you can go get all the stuff you want and manifest it. The real teaching is about you becoming more of yourself, activating your gifts that you're going to share with the world. And of course, coin of the realm comes, prosperity does happen, you get better health, all of this stuff happens. But those are added things, because the real thing is waking up. Now, there was a great documentary that came out, I forgot how many years ago now. The documentary was called The Matrix.
It's a documentary. I love how you said that. It's not a movie. Read in between the lines.
Yeah. I mean, it was all about individuals like breaking out of this matrix of very limited thinking, limited point of view, which is where people live right now. A lot of people live, their mind has been so conditioned. You could actually show them the truth, but they couldn't even see it because the perceptual windows are so closed. They wouldn't even recognize the truth because their mind has been conditioned since the time they were a toddler from this news at 7 and 11 that they actually believe that. And if somebody were to say, well, no, that's not really real. This is reality. They wouldn't even see it unless enough pain happens in their life or unless there's a tremendous insight that comes through spiritual practice or through grace. And so once you wake up, you can't unsee it. I've had the privilege, the honor, and the horror of having deep, profound awakening revelations. And I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't unsee the luminosity and the light that's all around us. I can't unsee the light and the luminosity that's within us, and that is our very life and being. I can't unsee it. It's where I live. It's what I see. And it guides me. And so spiritual practice, of which you teach, is a key to waking up and breaking free from the mesmerism and the nefarious hypnotism that then happens. And so underneath the spiritual practice is intention. Why are you doing your spiritual practice? You're not doing it just to become better than somebody. You're not doing it just to gain the stuff of the world. You have spiritual practice to wake up to your glorious nature, to discover who and what you are, not just the son and daughter of parents. They brought you here, but they're not the source of your creation. The source is life, to discover that you are an emanation of life. And then after that, why, as I said earlier, why did you choose to be here? You didn't choose to be here to stack up a whole lot of money and do nothing with it. If you did, you chose to be a philanthropist. You know what I mean? And then once a person discovers that, oh man, you're on a road now to true happiness and joy and bliss that has nothing to do or very little to do with external circumstances, because intrinsically we are joy babies. Intrinsically, joy is the nature of our being. It doesn't come because something good happened. Oh, now I'm in joy. I bought this new car. I'm happy. No, you are happy because that's your nature. And then within that field of your nature, You can get a new car. You can vision for a house. You can find your mate, whatever the case may be. But we have to discover who we are, or you can get all the stuff you think you want and still be unhappy, which, I used to counsel a lot of those kind of people.
We see that, right? The more spiritually unfulfilled we are, the more we seek validation from external sources, particularly in materialism and stimuli. It's a crazy world. And I think now we're having a real deep conversation that it's not like seeking joy. So we are joy, emanate that joy. You mentioned something really powerful that I remember you mentioned last time we spoke, and I don't think I got to really dive deep into this. You said we chose this before we came here. I believe just the same. Do you think that there is, and we wouldn't necessarily know the detail, but what's your belief and experience after decades and decades in studying these spiritual teachings and living this way more than anything? What's your belief about, let's say that we're in the spirit realm and we choose to come into this incarnation, into the third dimension, and we choose to, for me, become, similar to you, learning the spiritual arts and helping people remember and come home to our divine nature. What's your thoughts on that? And as in choosing our gifts and to come into this reality. And do you believe that we also choose our challenges? For example, my brother, he was only a baby. I was 5. And I wake up in the morning to this most horrendous scream, this shocking scream. And I walk into his bedroom and he has passed. And the vision that I had in the middle of the imprint period when I was 5 was a blue baby. And so my mum became an alcoholic, my father became an alcoholic, and I lived with, what many would call abuse or violence or, certainly suppression of emotion. Now that I'm somewhat more evolved, I look back at that and I say, thank God. And I don't mean that in a bypassing way, but thank God that I went through the pain and the trauma and the alcoholism and the emotional suppression, because it brought me to the diamond that I'm becoming today. It brought me to gratitude for life. People say, how can you find gratitude around death of your brother? And I say, I'm not the CEO of the entire multiverse, but I do believe that there is so many blessings that came from that. I would have never wished that upon anyone, and certainly not my mum. She never recovered from that. But at the same time, I never take this preciousness of life for granted again, because I know now that I have a son, I know how precious it is. Every day, it's like I get to be with breath today. I get to hold my son today. And so what are your thoughts on that in terms of what we choose before we come into this reality? Do we also choose our challenges and so on? Just whatever you feel like sharing, please.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, what you just said in terms of that particular dark experience allowed for you to grow into a depth of compassion and the depth of love and taking life so precious because of what appears to be a very negative circumstance. Now, obviously, now your brother had his own journey and your brother is still alive. He may even be guiding you from the other side, so he had his journey that had nothing to do with your journey. But his journey did set you up psychologically and spiritually to grow in a particular way. Now, your parents had the same opportunity, but they couldn't handle it. It was, that was their son. And so the depth of compassion that was offered to them, they didn't take it. They basically turned within and basically kind of destroyed their own psyche. 3 people having the same experience, but the outcome was totally different, you see. So I think that the soul, on a soul level, our challenges are set up for our own edification. They are definitely set up as a school for us to learn certain things. I don't think like it's God ordained necessarily, but I think that there's certain things that are set up by us that we get to learn from. And some people learn quickly. Some people, it takes a long time to learn. But before we got here, we did know the lay of the land. We did know what was going on in the social milieu of the world. And we knew that. And we chose to get on this adventure. It's an adventure of, it's an adventure of maybe losing consciousness for a while and then becoming conscious. It's an adventure of being in an environment where you may not have all the possibilities that you want, but you find a way to wake up anyway. When a person goes on an adventure, they're not following a path that's already been tread by someone. They're going into areas they've never seen before. That's why it's called an adventure. So when you take an adventure into human incarnation, you know the lay of the land, you know what's going on to a degree, but you don't know everything because there's so many people involved in making decisions, becoming conscious, being unconscious. So many things happen, but you know the possibilities. And what did you do? You came anyway. You didn't play safe. You came anyway. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff going on the planet. People are becoming conscious. Oh my God. It looks like the war between the flesh and the spirit is happening. I'm going in. And then you have the unique things that happen, like with your brother, that was a possibility before you got here, you see, and you jumped in anyway. And look what you're becoming because of it. Somebody else, your parents being an example, could have opted out, could have gone on drugs, could have said, I can't handle this, and sought to escape that experience through alcohol or drugs, whatever. You did not do that. So you're able to sit here and to talk to thousands of people about the possibility of awakening because at some level you did that. So the answer is yes, that you ask, but it's loosely yes. It's a loose, it's loose.
I love that. Some years ago, when I started, I want to get into breath soon. You said something very powerful before we press record. You said, I'm so happy that the breath is back. Wow, what a tool to inspire, to be in spirit, to breathe. Same word. Wow. You mentioned that you were doing this decades ago with rebirthing. What is breath? I let's not go on the biophysiological level. Okay, your breath is oxygen. Everyone gets it. But when we breathe, there seems to be an access point to different dimensions or different realities or different states of consciousness, different parts of the brain that come alive. I want to know, what are your thoughts on what is breath and how do you use it?
I do some level of breath work every single day of my life. But as you mentioned, back in the late 70s, I did what was called rebirthing with Leonard Orr. It was me, Leonard Orr, Terry Cole Whitaker, and a bunch of people outside under the stars doing the connected breath, for long periods of time and going into states of ecstasy, but also clearing. You become paralyzed at a time and then clear all of this psychic debris from yourself, become very clear. But as you indicated, it also gave access points to a level of consciousness within yourself, but access points into other dimensions. So that was back in the 70s, and I've seen iterations of breath work over the years, slow breathing, connected, rapid breathing, the breath of fire that's often used in the yogic practices, the deep breathing and sustaining the breath till you cannot sustain it any longer. But while you're at that point, you actually bring in the thought that you want to experience, such a nervous system acclimates itself around it. I mean, there's all levels of breath work, of which I practice a lot of it. I don't speak on a Sunday until I do a certain level of breath work. Right before I speak, I'm up in the back. Obviously, I've done my meditation in the morning and I'm available to what wants to come through, but then I'll do certain breath work and then go out and speak. And my body is full of the nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen that you need to survive. But also, it gives me a level of, I just feel full of the spirit. I just feel full of life, So I go to speak from that place, you see. And so when I say I'm glad breath is back, because I see different iterations of it emerging. And I used to use it, and I was telling you earlier, I was a spiritual therapist full time for 7 or 8 years of my life. That's all I did. It was see clients, 6 to 8 clients every single day, 5-6 days a week, and would counsel and pray. But I would also incorporate the breath, particularly if a person they couldn't have access to their emotions. They didn't really know how to describe what was going on. I'd have them do breath work and to access it. So they'd have more availability to speak about what they were really feeling. And we'd also use the breath to clear debris, emotional and psychic debris. So there's a whole lot of things we can talk about where breath is concerned, but I think it's very important particularly many people they breathe very shallow. They're not conscious of their breath. And just breath work itself is powerful. You see, it's a powerful modality.
What have you experienced in multidimensionally when you breathe? Do you believe that this could be a path to come closer to spirit, to God?
Well, it's a path to clear away debris, to realize that your life is an emanation of God. Because I believe, I really know that you can't get any more closer to God because the wave can't get any more closer to the ocean. You know what I mean? The wave is an emanation of the ocean. But what happens is the breath work peels away the layers, clears up the perceptual windows, so that you actually have an encounter, a personal revelation. Wow, God is right here. It's right. It's not way out there. In traditional religion, they would always point up to the sky and say, you're going to go to heaven or something like that. But heaven's here. The kingdom of heaven's at hand. It's here. The kingdom of God is within. So breath work assists you in having that realization. It's right here. It's right here. And then once you have that revelation, continued spiritual work helps you stabilize that revelation. So it's not just a one-off. It's not just a good memory. Oh, 3 years ago, I had this moment and I could see so clearly, and then, the consciousness shrunk. No, spiritual practice then helps you sustain that so that you're different. You begin to vibrate differently and you're able to sustain that frequency. Going back to a lot of things you said, one of the things I teach is anything that you learn under duress becomes stress resistant. Anything you learn under duress. So all the stuff that's happening in the world that's crazy, or whatever's happening in a person's personal life, if you develop a spiritual practice and you begin to have insights while negative appearance of negative stuff is happening, it becomes stress resistant because you learned it in negativity. So instead of escaping and running away, you actually go in and do your inner work when things are bad. And then, just like people that been in prison, people that been under harsh conditions and then learned that their attitude could be what they wanted it to be regardless of the condition. When they came out of prison or whatever the harsh condition was, that attitude was stress resistant because they didn't learn it at the beach under the sun. They learned it in harsh conditions. So I tell people, if something is really going bad in your life, that's the time to really try to develop a level of coherence. Don't wait to be happy until this thing is over. Develop a level of coherence around joy and happiness now, even though it's crazy making to the surface mind. And then when you're able to sustain that, it becomes stress resistant. The world didn't give it to you, so the world can't take it away.
Oh,
you got it on your own practice.
And God never sends great challenges to small soldiers.
There you go.
I love that. I don't know how many times this has come through in this transmission, ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, but if you haven't picked it up already, I just want to emphasize it again. A spiritual practice, a way of living. We can grow through pain, and maybe your life is already painful, so adopt a spiritual practice. Or we can grow through love, so maybe your life is already demonstrating an emanation, an experience of love. Yeah, so maybe perhaps even deepen your spiritual practice. I love how this is coming through over and over again. And honestly, I lived in ignorance. I love how you say that we were always connected to God. It's never like, hey, God's out there, and no. Everything is here, spirit, source, consciousness, everything is in me. I wasn't separate. I just felt separate. I went through a temporary period of forgetfulness. And then as I started to breathe and feel and heal, I remembered that I'm not separate from anything. I'm connected to everything, and I am a unique fractal of this divine consciousness. And then I just started to make my life a ceremony. And I'm very imperfect. I make so many mistakes. Yeah, but I made life a ceremony. And I love how you talk about spiritual practice. Wow.
Well, when you brought up Yeshua ben Joseph, when Yeshua ben Joseph said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, he was talking about a way. He wasn't ego tripping and saying me. He was saying, this is the way. Follow, I am the way. I'm showing you the way to do it. Pray believing that you have, that you may receive. forgive 70 times 7. The kingdom of heaven's at hand. Kingdom of God is within. This is the way you do it. The ground upon which you're standing is holy because you're standing there and God is everywhere. This is the way, not me. This is the way. Yeah, I'm awake. Absolutely. But this is the way. I am the way. And then he said, hey, you take up your own cross, meaning you take all your burdens, all your traumas, all your unhealed errors. You pick up your own psychological, emotional, physical crosses. You dissect it, discover the lies in them, embrace the truth of your being, and set yourself free. You see, follow me this way, and so again, it comes down to practice. And as you indicated, practice becomes a way of living. It's just how you live your life, and it's not religious. It's not religion. This is a practice. The same way that people have a social, they have is a social commitment kind of to shower and to clean up before you go out into the public. You have this inner commitment to take your inner shower on a regular basis. And psychologically and mentally, emotionally, go within and clean yourself up through spiritual practice so that people aren't meeting the debris. They're meeting you, who are becoming more and more free.
This is so important, Michael. I was teaching, I certify people in becoming a coach. So we do breathwork and meditation and things like this. And it's all about, how to live in alignment with our highest value and live a beautiful life and obviously give back. I was teaching energy hygiene yesterday. And this is so interesting. I'd love your thoughts on this, because if we study, and you mentioned quantum physics a couple of times, Max Planck won the Nobel Prize 100 years ago when he quantified that there is improved evidence for a field of divine intelligence. Finally, science is catching up with what spirituality has been teaching for thousands of years. There is a field of intelligence. It exists. It is scientifically proven. It shows that everything is connected beyond space and time. So we are unique fractals of the one, of this, whatever you want to call it. So I looked at that and I thought, hang on, if we are made up of 99.9% pure energy, that means non-physical consciousness, we can't touch it, we can't see it, we can't feel it. If we're only using 5 to 15% of our brain, we can see 0.035% of the colors that exist, 0.8% of the sounds that exist. They say, the so-called scientists, that we're 98% of our DNA is junk.
Yeah, right. God made junk.
God made junk. Oh, right. Now, maybe that is ignorance. I don't know. But then there is this. What we can at least discern from that is that the majority of the energy that exists in the field right now is something that with our current limited 5 senses, we can't tune into the majority of the time. If that is the case, what does energy hygiene mean to you? And I don't know if you want to go there, but dark entities, dark spirits. I know one time I read Yeshua as he was walking through the fair or the community, I can't recall, someone touched him and he just lost a lot of life force. I don't know if how you want to go there, but for me, spiritual hygiene and energy hygiene is very important. What would be your top tips on that, considering the fact that so much of what is in the field is unconscious to many?
You're covering a lot of material there.
Yeah, sorry, that was a long question, man.
First of all, that example you're talking about, when the woman touched Yeshua,
yeah,
energy flowed and she was healed immediately.
Ah,
She had been bleeding for years and doctors couldn't help her, but she'd heard about this guy in the village that was adept at healing, and she was just trying to just get to him, but she couldn't get to him, so she reached out and she touched the hem of his garment, and he felt the energy flow from him. It was her faith and her availability, and she was immediately healed. And he told her, your faith has made you whole, but it was also his high octave field that assisted her connecting with her faith that she could be healed, that healed her. And so that's the full story of what would happen. Now, I'll go back a little bit. When I first woke up, I was a senior in college, and I was having a lot of inner experiences. One, at that particular time, I was smoking weed, But I had stopped. I started having these experiences, and I thought the weed was contributing to the experiences, so I stopped. And I had an opening.
Yeah,
A
I
big,
did the same.
yeah,
I
big
thought it was
opening.
originally connecting me, and then I went, nah, so I just cut it.
Yeah. And then what happened was there were entities around me from my previous life, and I could see them, I could hear them and see them. And I can remember staying close to the 91st Psalm and really working with my consciousness. But I could see these entities, and they were entities that were formerly attached to me based on my old habits. I wasn't a bad person or anything like that, but I had bad habits. And after a while, they dissolved. They couldn't vibe with me anymore. My consciousness and my surrender and my availability to the presence was so strong that it wasn't a part of my example, my life. But I could see them at first. I could see these beings, and they're our thoughts of fear and worry and separation. They fuel those entities, so they live on our fear or on our addictions or things of that particular nature.
And
So
when you
there
say
are,
they, what are they? Are they dark spirits, entities? I mean,
well, I think there's two levels. One, there are beings who went unconscious and are just hanging out in that energy. They feel happy when they're sucking energy from people. That addictive thing did not leave when they left over. You see, and then there are entities that we have created with our own fear. We have these thought forms, and we fuel them with our fear, our doubts, our worry, our anger, and they dissolve as soon as we no longer feed it. You see, I'll tell you a brief story, and then we'll get into it. A number of years ago, there was a gentleman that called the office, and he was experiencing a supernatural stuff in his house. The water was coming out of his walls, the bed was shaking up and down, a whole lot of stuff you might see on television. So me and a friend of mine, who was a minister, he's passed over now, we went to the house. We just thought, yeah, this can't really be happening. So we went there, and it was happening. There was like stuff coming out of the wall. The beds were shaking up and down. It was all this stuff going on. I said, wow, this is really happening. So we lit a candle. We took some different spiritual scriptures, the Dhammapada, Bhagavad Gita, the Holy Bible. We put them on a table, and we opened it up to the 91st Psalm. We started reading the 91st Psalm and praying, and then it stopped. Everything stopped. It was clean and clear. So we left. And there was this guy, and there was a young lady there. So we went back to the office. When we got back to the office, the phone rang. It was him again. And he said, it's starting up again. So we went back out to the house again. So this time I'm asking about the girl in the room. And I come to find out that this girl was previously homeless, and that he had given her a place to stay, but she was exchanging sexual favors for her to stay there. I think she was even underage. So I confronted him about this. And long story, I won't go into the whole, long story short, what was the phenomena was his guilt. He was so guilty about what he was doing, and that it was coming up as all of this phenomena he was creating. And as soon as he admitted to what he was doing to us, and we got her out of there and got her in a much more secure place for a girl could be taken care of, it stopped. But so he created that phenomenon from his own guilt, because he knew what he was doing was wrong. He wasn't helping the girl. He was having her give him sex to stay there. Mm. So that's why I say you can fuel something, and there can actually be entities that are vibrating at a lower frequency.
You actually mentioned at the beginning that there are certain entities or that are parasitic in nature.
Right. And they're again on the other side of the veil. They're the lesser of us. They're living in a sense of separation, gluttony, getting what they think they need from others. Some people call it like vampire kind of spirits, that type of thing. But once you wake up, as you know, you are here to share, to give, to celebrate life. You're not trying to get things from people. The getting is the byproduct of your giving. But when people get lost in the sauce of feeling separate from God, they develop a habit of taking. And it shrinks their soul faculty. And when they pass over, sometimes it doesn't. They have to live like that for a while.
Mm. And I think also the cleaner your energy, the more in communion with spirit we live, the more sacred our lives are, the more we practice our spiritual stuff, clean up our nutrition. I want to talk about that quickly before we wrap up. That, obviously the higher, you mentioned Yeshua had this high, octave. He was vibrating at such a level that, physical touch could help and her faith, of course, which is, I think, is help her here. And I also believe that there's some truth in the statement that when we are oscillating at that level, when we are emanating from love, living in joy and peace and so on, then it's very difficult, if not sometimes impossible, for these so-called entities or fragments of us to
Can't do it. The
even
highest vibration always wins.
Yeah.
And the only time that you're vibrating high, only time that kind of attack happens if you're about to go to another level. This is what happened with Gautama the Buddha. When he was waking up, he was attacked by a lot of entities because of the vulnerability of his moving to the next level. So sometimes sometimes it seems like it gets worse before it gets better because we're detoxing a lot of stuff. But these are some very intricate conversations we're having.
I'm honored that you're even willing to go there, because I know our community. These are a lot of the questions that I get on day 3 of my event. I see, does anyone have any questions? And these are the kind of questions, because we've gone through how to clear fear and guilt and shame and grief and how to come from love and so on. But these are very common questions, and I think they're pertinent right now because we're going through this process of evolution on a collective scale, and the light is, as you said, way more powerful than the dark. But there may be, things trying to slow it down, our evolution, or things in our own creation that are doing the same. I love what the sentence that you just said here. When we go to a new level, I mean, we saw this in the scriptures as well, fasting for 40 days, putting himself into this pain. Not eating for 40 days would be painful. I've done 20 days and 10 days on herbs after that, which was phenomenal, but very painful. I just wonder, because I've noticed the same. I'm in the transition right now of evolving. My mission is taking on a whole new level of growth, and I am discerning where a potential, because I'm feeling in a certain ways. But can you tell us just a little bit more about, as we pop up to a new octave, if we're about to evolve to a new level of opportunity or influence or growth or development or spiritual attunement, whatever it might be, can we then expect, or at least do we need to be aware of, potential spiritual attacks and or something of that nature? Or what have you seen in your experience?
It's called chemicalization. That means there are things that are hidden in our consciousness that when we go to the next level, they pop out and they disturb us, or we feel bad, we feel anxious, we feel stressful, we feel painful at times. But it means that something that has been locked and closed away can't be closed away anymore. So it pops out. Now, if you can imagine, I mean, when we go to a different level, we use words like higher and lower, but it doesn't really work like that because there's no higher or low in God. Basically, if you look at a spiral, and here's a person's level of awareness, like here, but you have an insight. So then the spiral becomes bigger. Now your awareness is this. You have another insight. Now your spiral awareness is like this. But every time the spiral increases, that which can no longer be in your field pops up to be released. And so people have a tendency to feel that they've gone backwards. They haven't gone backwards. They're just releasing toxins. And then as you continue to maintain your practice, then those toxins become requalified. They become transmuted to, because energy is never created or destroyed, become transmuted into a higher frequency. And now your spiral, now you have this much awareness. You keep practicing. Another insight. Now it's this. And then whatever is hidden at that level pops up. Feels like you're going backwards, but you're not going backwards. You're releasing toxins.
Whew. I'm so grateful that we have the opportunity to have this high level, spiritually attuned conversation. This means so much, I know, to many of the listeners and viewers. And it just feels like such a clean, like pure transmission here. Thank you for sharing that. I just love the fact that you talk about this spiral. I had a vision, and then I'll go segment to the last question. I had a vision some years ago. I saw God in its infinite light and beauty. And it was so overwhelming that I just broke down in tears and grace. I didn't know how to process the beauty that was. But I saw also that it had, God had separated itself, himself, herself through levels, layers, densities, and dimensions into fractals. And when we came past the third dimension, we went past the veil of forgetfulness. So then we came through, we forgot who we were, and then we are walking around on the earth, right? And now this spiral is happening where it has gone away, never disconnected, but some parts of itself forgot about itself. And now God is calling to himself all its own pieces through this spiral of coming home and awakening. It blew my mind because it gave me some console as to why I felt disconnected from a young age. It was a beautiful vision.
Yeah, you're not learning, you're remembering.
Yeah. Okay. I know that we are out of time. And again, thank you for coming on. I want to mention something that I think is really powerful and really easy that I know many people miss out on. When I was in clinic, I did blood tests of 100 patients. 96 of those patients were deficient in some absolutely fundamental nutrients, particularly magnesium and vitamin D and other things. You have created a product that is really easy to take, of the highest quality grade nutrition. And if we combine that with our spiritual practice, I believe we could heal ourselves even further and even faster. Can you just tell us what is these physical products and where can one go to learn more about them?
Absolutely. You said a lot. And even in terms of our conversation, the body temple, as we expand our consciousness, we're able to hold more of the cosmic energy. But if you're deficient in your minerals, deficient in your enzymes, deficient in your vitamins and fiber in your good food, you can't hold the energy. Your body will it's like trying to put 100 watts into a 10-watt wire or a 10-watt bulb. The wattage is there, but your body can't hold it because the body, the eye is single, the body is full of light. The body's an optic nerve. So you need to have really good nutrition, you see. And so what I have is a couple. I have a good vitamin D3K2. It's really, really good, liquid. And I have a superfood green powder it's so nutritionally dense. And I have an 8 mushroom pack that has all the great mushrooms that one needs for their gut health and for their coherence of the brain. And so it's called AdaptaZen. And so how they can find AdaptaZen is they go to NutriRise.com. NutriRise, NutriRise.com. And there, when you go to a website, it has those little 3 lines there. You hit those 3 lines and you'll look for AdaptaZen and you'll see my products under AdaptaZen. And there's some new ones being released. We're putting out a new vitamin D that's going to be very potent, not only with D3K2, but it's going to have some herbal things connected with it that's going to really superpower the D. Because most people, as you know, they're deficient in D,
Exactly.
which provides the context for certain diseases to emerge.
Yep. It's one of the most leading causes of chronic disease out there.
Right.
A deficiency in vitamin D, aka you're not connecting with the sun, the source of light, enough, and you're inside, so you need to supplement. 96% likely that you need to supplement with this, which is why I wanted to mention it, Michael, because not only do you have the highest quality product, but you have the highest quality integrity. And that's why I want people to go and look at that. And if they take the vitamin D3 with K2 and adaptogens and the super greens, we can fuel the body temple to hold more light. And
I take it every day. Okay.
Yeah.
Every day I have a certain routine in the morning, that liquids that I drink. I work out in the gym. Well, I meditate and I work out in the gym. I come back. I mean, you have to supplement because the ground is not how it used to be 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah. What is it? 3 minerals out of 52 left in the standard soil? MPK.
Man, listen,
that's all that's left.
You need. This was a few years ago. it's probably worse now. You needed 25 apples to get what one apple would give you 25, 30 years ago.
Man, that breaks my
Yeah.
heart.
So people saying it used to be an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but now you'd have to eat 25 unless you're at a regenerative farm and it has really good organic stuff, But pretty much people going to the grocery store and buying fruit, you have to really supplement to really stay healthy.
And that we shall do. Okay, we'll be dropping the links in the chat, guys, so you guys can look at that as well. And I've got one last question for you straight off the cuff, sir. Are you ready?
Yes, sure.
You are on the world stage. Every sentient being alive has gathered, watching, tuning into your message. When you're ready, sir, please take a breath and share. What is your message to the world right now?
My message today is that each and every one of us are more powerful than we are. That thinking has been replaced by thinkingness, mentation, repetitive thoughts that masquerade as thinking. Real thinking is inspiration. When you tune in with real intentionality, with spiritual practice, with affirmative prayer, with meditation, with life visioning, etc., breathwork, you get to be inspired. That's the thought of God thinking through you. Thinkingness ceases and you see the way it is, not the way you think it is.
Amen. Ooh. Okay, a couple of last links. michaelbeckwith.com. Okay, that's BECKWITH, Beckwith.com. And Agape, for those who want to tune into this, of Agape Live, right?
Agape Live, Live, AGAPELIVE.com.
Yeah.
There you'll get the services every Sunday. I do classes at our university. There's a lot of things that occur. Register, receive your free moments of inspiration that come on a regular basis, the theme of the month.
And honestly, we talked about a spiritual practice. What if every Sunday, or whichever time it is, in Australia or wherever you are in the world, what if that could be a way for the family to gather and watch these high-level, deeply integral teachings and meditation and all the stuff that comes out there? Like, I go to church regularly. Why? Because I want to give credit where credit's due. I want to be in that energy. But this is one of the purest transmissions that I come across, and there's no dogma here.
We're dogma-free zone. Dogma-free zone.
It's amazing. It's so pure, and I absolutely love it. So I want to say thanks again, Michael. It is such an honor, and I, for one, my heart is just giddy right now because I just love having conversations with you. I want to really thank you for being here with us, and we'll make sure that this goes out to as many people as possible. Check out Agape Live. Check out michaelbeckwith.com, and also the nutritional stuff as well if you feel like that's going to.
And you can also check out Take Back Your Mind podcast as well.
Oh, yes. Listen, if you want to tune into more of this, Take Back Your Mind podcast. Check it out. Thank you. This is.
Hey man, it's always when I saw on my calendar it was you. It was like, oh, good. You know, you have clean and beautiful energy, and it's good hanging out with you. It's good dialoguing with you. It's really I get as much out of it as you say you are. I'm getting as much out of it too. Just hanging with you and listening to your intelligence and energy just flow. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I love you, brother. It's an honor to be in this space with you.
I love you, man. You stay strong.
Stay strong. This is Michael Beckwith, everybody.